It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas everywhere you go. Take a look at the 5 and 10. It's glistening once again with candy canes and silver lanes that glow. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Toys in every store, but the prettiest sight to see is the holly that will be on your own front door. A pair of hop-along boots and a pistol that shoots is the wish of Barney and Ben. Dolls that'll talk and we'll go for a walk is the hope of Janice and Jen.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, please silence all electronics and find your seats. We will begin the program in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Like Christmas, everywhere you go, there's a tree in the Grand Hotel, one in the park as well. It's the sturdy kind that doesn't mind the snow. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Soon the bells will start, and the thing that'll make them ring is the carol that you sing right within your heart. It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Toys in every store, but the prettiest sight to see is the holly that will be on your own front door. Sure, it's Christmas once more.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We will be beginning the ceremony shortly. Please silence all electronics and find your seats. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the United States Air Force Test Pilot School Test Fundamentals Class 21-3 graduation. I am Colonel Sabrina Pabon, and I have the honor to serve as Commandant as the United States Air Force Test Pilot School. My co-hosts for this morning will be Second Lieutenant Michael Crump and Major Jacob Bills, the class leader for 21-3. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the national anthem and the invocation by Captain Marla Butterworth.
If you'd like to join me, let us pray. Creator of earth and space, your handiwork is remarkable. It also makes things like Astro super challenging, so thank you for sustaining these students through that coursework. Thank you for simply the opportunity to attend this space test course, and ultimately for this graduation day. Patience they have learned. Thank you for the instructors. Their experience, knowledge, and desire to see the students succeed, please grant them wisdom and discernment as they continue to build out this course. Thank you for the new friendships forged while watching hockey, playing games, being foodies, and the desire to emulate Chief Mort. Thank you also for family, friends, and colleagues who are here today to celebrate together, but perhaps even more for the way they've supported these students across the past 3 months. May their souls be soothed with the smiles, touch, and laughter of being reunited with loved ones. These students may have spent 3 months in a dry desert, but I ask that you bring the rain as these men and women return to their home units. As they trek into their follow-on assignments and beyond, may they continue to joyfully nerd out and know that their work is making a difference. With this new patch comes great responsibility, but may it also bring great joy and fulfillment. As they boldly go where T&E has not gone before, may they put their knowledge and skills to good use. Enlighten their minds, guide them, and worthy of these guardian service. So Almighty God, whose command is over all and whose love never fails, we ask that you make it so. Amen.
Thank you, Captain Butterworth. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. I would like to start by recognizing a few of our distinguished guests. Please hold your applause until all the guests have been introduced. From the United States Space Force, Colonel Peter Flores, Commander Space Delta 12 Test and Evaluation. Colonel Sasha Talmanson, Division Chief, Space Training and Readiness Command Test Enterprise. Lieutenant Colonel Anna Gungolkin, Commander, 3rd Space Experimentation Squadron. And Lieutenant Colonel Brian Eno, Commander, Range Operations. From the Space Systems Command, Mr. King Mulder, Center Test Authority. From the Air Force Test Center, Major General Evander Teen, Commander. From the 412th Test Wing, Brigadier General Matthew Heiger, Commander. From Arnold Engineering Development Complex, Colonel Jeff Garrity, Commander. And from the United States Test Pilot School, Lieutenant Colonel Hans Buckwalter, Deputy Commandant, Mr. David Van Hoy, Technical Director, and last but certainly not least, Dr. Andrew Freeborn, the Director of Special Programs and our Space Test Fundamentals Course Director. I would also like to extend a warm welcome to the family members in attendance and to all visiting commanders and friends of Class 21-3, especially those that may be joining us virtually. A special thank you to the people who organized the event, the graduation committee from Test Pilot School, the Class 21-3 committee, and the base multimedia team. The development of the Space Test Fundamentals course has been a multi-year effort in order to meet the United States Space Force needs to produce adaptive critical thinking test professionals to conduct full spectrum test and evaluation of space weapon systems. The students have completed a very challenging 3 months, and this morning is a culmination of their efforts. Thank you all for joining us today in person and virtually to recognize their accomplishments. Major Jacob Bills will now join me on stage to announce the guest speaker for Class 21-3.
Thank you, Colonel Pabon. It is an honor to get to introduce the guest speaker for today's graduation event. Lieutenant General, United States Air Force retired, Susan J. Helms, was elected to the Board of Trustees of the Aerospace Corporation on March 9th, 2017. Helms graduated from the U.S. Air Force Academy in 1980 and was in the first class to admit women into the Cadet Corps. She served as an F-15 and an F-16 weapons separation engineer and as an assistant professor in the Department of Aeronautics in the U.S. Air Force Academy. Helms was then selected to attend the USAF Test Pilot School Flight Test Engineer course. Upon graduation as a distinguished graduate, she served as an exchange officer working on the CF-18 with the Canadian Air Force at the Aerospace Engineering Test Establishment in Cold Lake, Alberta. In January 1990, then Major Helms became a NASA astronaut, and in 1993, became the first United States military woman in space. She flew on 5 human spaceflight missions, including a tour as a member of the International Space Station Expedition 2 crew. Helms logged 211 days in space and accomplished a spacewalk of 8 hours and 56 minutes, a world record that stands today. After 12 years at NASA, Helms transferred to the Air Force Space Command. She commanded the 45th Space Wing at Cape Canaveral and held positions at Headquarters, Air Force Space Command, Air Education and Training Command, U.S. Strategic Command, and upon promotion to Lieutenant General, she commanded the 14th Air Force Space Command, and the Joint Functional Component Command for space in a dual hat role. Lieutenant General Helms retired from the military service in 2014 and currently serves as a member of the NASA Aerospace Safety Advisory Panel. Among her many awards are the General James V. Hardinger Award, Thomas D. White Space Award for Outstanding Contributions to Space, Dr. Kurt H. Du Bois Award, and Women in Aerospace Outstanding Achievement Award, NASA Outstanding Leadership Medal, and Introduction into the Astronaut Hall of Fame. General Helms, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. I'm only here today because there's a young lieutenant out there who got the bright idea to check in with me just a few weeks ago to see if I had any interest in coming out here and talking to this august group of graduates for the 3rd class of folks going through on space test fundamentals. And it so happened that I'm in LA this week and was able to do a little quick detour last night to come to Edwards in order to be here today, because I do find having an opportunity to encourage those of you in this business for space test and giving you a few words of wisdom before we kick you out the door here to go out there and do good. I couldn't resist. Then I thought about when was the last time I was at Edwards Air Force Base. It was already mentioned that I am also a graduate of the Test Pilot School Flight Test Engineer course. That was class 88A, by the way. Had a couple other people in that class you may have heard of. Rick Husband, who also became an astronaut, unfortunately lost his life on Columbia in 2003. But also Chris Hadfield, a Canadian, was in our class. So we are very proud of the fact that 88A created a bump of 3 astronauts into the astronaut corps, because that back then was, of course, what everybody wanted to do when they came to Edwards, in large part, was to try to figure out how to become an astronaut. And we had a good record when it came to 88A. And then I thought about, when's the last time I was at Edwards? And I now have figured that out. It was September 20th, 1994, and it kind of dropped in. I dropped in on Space Shuttle Discovery with my crew at the end of a Space Shuttle mission, my second mission. Discovery was, of course, supposed to land at Cape Canaveral, like is always scheduled. But unfortunately, Cape Canaveral's weather didn't participate in helping us get there. So at the last minute, we had a wave off, weather wave off, and we ended up coming around the Earth one more time with about 80 minutes notice and dropping in on Edwards Air Force Base, which of course was ready. But it was literally the last time I was here, was landing and coming out of the space shuttle. And didn't get much of a chance to look around. They hustled us onto one of the Gulfstream airplanes NASA has to get us back to Houston. But I thought it would be interesting to let you know that I was fully in compliant with my TDY orders. One of the really cool little trivia things about being an astronaut is, NASA is a government organization, and therefore every time you travel, no matter what, they still cut you TDY orders to do that travel. So these are some of the coolest souvenirs I think astronauts have, particularly if they're military astronauts from their space travels. You actually get a set of TDY orders to travel in space. And here's what they say. They say, from Houston, Texas, to Kennedy Space Center, to low Earth orbit, to Kennedy Space Center, to Houston, Texas, deviations authorized as required. So we had a deviation. We ended up landing at Edwards here instead of at Cape Canaveral at Kennedy Space Center for that particular trip. And the other cool thing about being under TDY orders, just like any government entity, they require that you file a travel voucher when you return. And the interesting part about that travel voucher, particularly if you're on a long 6-month flight, is you do have government-provided food for the trip. That would be, your space food. You do have government-provided lodging. That would be the sleeping bag on your spacecraft. And you do have government-provided transportation, which in my case was the space shuttle to go to and from space and the space station in the last case. So why do you need to file a travel voucher? Because it's cheaper to do the bureaucracy and file the voucher than it is to turn off that $3 a day incidental that you're owed for doing government travel. So when people ask if astronauts are in fact make a lot of money flying in space, the answer is no. We actually make about the $3 a day incidental. That is literally what your pay is to travel in space, is when you get your voucher filed, they pay you not for food, not for lodging, and not for the actual conveyance of travel, but just for that one little incidental fee they can't figure out how to turn off. And so my grand total from a space flight on my last time, which was 167 days, I got paid a total of something like $312 to fly in space on that trip. So a really cool little set of trivia, and I intended to kind of lighten things up a little bit before I get into this more serious side, and that is to talk to those of you specifically today who are graduating from this school. It's a 3-month school that I recognize has challenged you, has made you think in new and different ways. The intent of the school itself is to get you sharpened on your critical thinking skills, and believe me, you're going to need that as you leave here and either go back to where you've been or maybe go forward to other places that you have not gotten to yet. You are at the pointy end of matching up operational expertise with technical expertise. And this is a skill that is desperately needed by those of us who are well aware of the challenges that we as a nation face as military personnel, and in particular, the challenges that appear to be getting more and more interesting when we talk about what's happening in the space domain. In order to meet those challenges, we need the kind of skills that are coming out of this school. When I left NASA and came back to the Air Force back then, it would have been the Space Force if I'd waited about 20 more years, but now it was the Air Force in 2002. I noticed that we didn't really have a lot of folks in the business of space that brought together that nice match I knew from my flight test engineering days in the air world, where you were operator savvy, but you were also technical savvy, and you could figure out how to better use the capabilities that you have in order to do things that are surprising and innovative. You know, back then we relied on contractors to kind of help us figure that out. But that's good, but it can be better. When the military operators are getting more and more in this business, the innovation, because you understand these warfighting environments better than contractors, this is where the true creativity comes in. And we're going to need that creativity to match some of the challenges that are facing this nation looking forward with how things are developing out there in a very, very complex world. Nothing like what it was when I was in test pilot school. So you're that group of people. And I recognize from talking to some of your folks here that are developing the test course and some of the more senior ranking people around you that this is a developing thing. This is intended to grow more and more. I'm here to tell you that you can't go fast enough. The nation needs what you're doing. And the more you get your fingers in this business and really learn how to succeed and do well and help your leaders with it, the better. And that gets me to my second point. I really liked the fact that the critical thinking skills were an emphasis item for this course, because in effect, as you all get more and more into trying to figure out how to use your capabilities in new and interesting ways in order to keep ahead of the threat, you're going to be that person who can really help the senior decision makers understand the risk picture. The risk picture is not black and white. The risk picture is always shades of gray. The spacecraft that you'll be working with, some of them will be new, some of them will have new capabilities that were not in place back when I was here in the auditorium getting my degree from test pilot school. But some of what you'll be asked to do, I'm sure, is to try to figure out how to use what we already have in space in new and different ways. And, you know, unlike the air world, you're really not in a position to be able to bring the aircraft back down, tinker with it, change things about it, maybe figure out how to do an upgrade to that aircraft, and then give it another go in the test business. You're not really in a position of being able to do that. You are in a position of being able to help your decision makers figure out with what you have and the trade space that is open to you in terms of how you can use those capabilities, even in ways they were not designed to be used. What kind of risks does that present? What kind of rewards does that present? And what's the trade-off between them? You are going to help decision makers with those challenges. And by the way, I don't think there's probably a better group of people to help with decision makers with those challenges than the kind of people who are going to be coming out of this school, because you have been trained to do exactly that kind of risk management in this school. I know their early years here. I know this is the first year, but this is going to grow and grow and grow. And you are at the forefront of a new precedent-setting niche in the profession of arms, especially for space. And that's my third message. You are setting precedent, whether you know it or not. I would, if I were in your seat, I would not look at this as just another cool training opportunity. I'm sure the stuff you did the last 3 months was really, really eye-opening and really, really neat. But whether you realize it or not, you have a responsibility to set the tone of space test professionals moving forward. And it's a great place to be because you are at this point in time where you're unencumbered with institutional thinking. You can set the direction that this niche of professionalism, in fact, will head and what it will mean in the context of the broader Space Force and, again, the broader Department of Defense. It is a really, really good time to be coming out of this school. And it's just a suggestion, but I would think about, as a group, what are your guiding principles? Knowing that you are at the forefront of setting precedent for a new niche of the profession of arms, what are the guiding principles of your niche? You know, when they started doing nuclear submarines, there were people out there that created guiding principles on being in the profession of arms of nuclear submarines. The astronauts, there were guiding principles early on with the original 7 of how they would fit in as astronauts with the rest of the human spaceflight endeavors and the rest of the teams they worked with. And if you're interested in knowing what I would consider a guiding principle, here's one for you, and you can basically take this as a suggestion only, but maybe as an example you could run with as you get together with others that are like you in these early years and set the precedent for how this will develop over the next 5 years. I would suggest one of your guiding principles is you always speak truth to power. You're going to be dealing with shades of gray of risk. You're going to be put in situations where your expertise will be challenged. You're going to be needing to be in a place to tell decision makers hard truths because you're the one that's going to know what the capabilities are capable of as you are being asked to present capabilities for part of a broader conflict in to protect and defend mission. So speaking truth to power would be a really great guiding principle to say up front that this is an essence, a part of your profession. So I really envy all of you who are coming out of the school today. You are in a wonderful position. It's great responsibility nonetheless, but you are in a position where you can shape how that responsibility ends up institutionalizing itself for the Space Force and how the Department of Defense writ large ends up meeting the challenges which are surely going to unfold in your lifetime. There's no doubt about it. So I'm envious. But nonetheless, I'm too old for this business now. You are not. Your creative thinking, where you've been, and the experiences you've had up to this point have prepared you perfectly for being the group of people who develops this brand new niche of professionalism called Space Test. And I am going to look forward to watching with great interest how this unfolds for the future, and with great confidence that this group is up to it. And because of what you do and what you will do, the nation's security will be better for it. Congratulations to all of you today. I am so thrilled to get a chance to come down here and pass on my thoughts. And I really think probably it's time for me to get off the stage so we can give you those graduation honors and you can get on to doing the business that you need to do. Thank you very much.
Ma'am, you can remain on stage. So, thank you for your speech. And on behalf of the class of 21-3, we would like to present to you a gift or a token of our appreciation.
All right, I would now like to invite Major Bills to deliver his class leader address. The class leader is responsible for leading within, for being that conduit of information between the students and the staff at TPS. Major Bills had the privilege of doing all this while also being a student full-time with the rest of his classmates. Major Bills, on behalf of your classmates and the entire TPS staff, thank you for all of your hard work and leadership.
Morning. So first, just on behalf of the class, I would like to thank everyone, friends and family, both here and virtually, General Helms, our distinguished visitors, staff and instructors. Thank you for being here today, sharing this event with us. As I look back on our time, as I was kind of preparing my comments, I realized probably none of us graduates would have, at the beginning of our careers, would have guessed where we would be today. Having the opportunity to, at least for all but one of our members who is a civilian. So for all the military members, having the opportunity to transfer into the newest branch of the United States military, and then on top of that, being selected in the very first selection board to attend this new and innovative course designed to further and develop the test enterprise within the Space Force. I don't think any of us would have ever really guessed that would happen. From its inception, Space Force has been very clear about its desire to be a fast and agile one, and I think this class is a pretty good example of that. Instead of waiting until we had the perfect course, the perfect curriculum, got the initial stuff down, started bringing students in, graduating classes, and then incrementally improving after each one. To me, that is very encouraging, and I hope it leads to this class having a long and storied history, one that as graduates might be able to come back to in the future and see that history on the walls in the new building that I believe actually just began construction. So it has been a very full 3 months for us, from first arriving, just trying to figure out what was going on, to all the lessons, meetings with VIPs, general officers, our field trip, Astro Week. For family members, I highly recommend you ask about Astro Week. We have been very busy, and we have learned a lot. We are also we are thankful for being selected to be part of this, and for being entrusted with the responsibility of continuing to develop the test enterprise and furthering the vision of this course as we go back to the force. We're also thankful for the instructors and staff for putting in the necessary work to simultaneously develop and teach the class at the same time, especially as it continues to develop and slightly change course and things get nailed down. We know that is a lot of work. We're also thankful for the staff instructors for just simply putting up with us for the last 3 months in our shenanigans, so thank you for that. And finally, to my fellow graduates, as you all return to your units, be sure to implement what you have learned here and continue to be part of this change that the Space Force has shown to be so serious about. And as people ask you about the patch on your shoulder, be sure to spread the word about what is being developed here, because by spreading the word, we can ensure that STF is able to select among the highest quality of applicants, so we can develop the most effective space systems and ensure that the United States remains the most dominant force, not just on the land, air, sea, and cyber, but in space as well. And so with that, I would like to introduce everyone. We'll play our class video, I believe.
Thank you, Major Bills. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in one more round of applause for STF 21-3's class leader. The students of STF 21-3 come from a diverse background, representing nearly all space warfighting disciplines, from operators and engineers to intelligence and program managers, and ranging in rank from staff sergeant through major. Their coursework focused on test fundamentals, systems, and space sciences, and included an immersion field trip, as well as a capstone project. The students in Class 21-3 were selectively chosen to be a part of this first year of Space Test Fundamentals at the Test Pilot School. Their work here was twofold, as in addition to studying hard, the feedback they provided will help shape the future of the Space Test Education and Training Program. Please join me in a round of applause for the efforts of Class 21-3. And now for the moment we've all been waiting for, we will now graduate the students of Class 21-3. Major General Durteen, Brigadier General Higer, and Colonel Pabon, would you please join me on the stage for the presentation of the graduate plaque and patches? Graduates, as your name is called, come to the stage to receive your graduate plaque and patch. Captain Joshua Butterworth. Captain Ryan Dietzius. Staff Sergeant Joseph Duggan. First Lieutenant Tyler Gorman. Captain Jeremiah Hoffman. Major Keith Hudson. First Lieutenant Adit Kajuria. Technical Sergeant Dustin Mosader. Mr. Sean Northrop. Captain Charles Salerno. First Lieutenant Noel Schaefer. Captain Michael Waters. Technical Sergeant Joseph Wood. Captain Richard Yielding III. Captain George Zeitler. And your class leader, Major Jacob Bills. Major General Dertine, Brigadier General Heiger, and Colonel Pabon, thank you.